Hi guys, I'm Sabrina from The Power Within Us, and I am here today with Jimmy Diaz. Hi Jimmy.
Hi.
Thank you so much for having us here in your home, and Jimmy's gonna tell us what he does, his line of work, and how he started. So,
So I've been studying the healing arts for the past 10 years. I've been studying and practicing the healing arts for the past 10 years and doing all kinds of modalities, learning about hypnotherapy, neurolinguistic programming, shamanic healing, energy healing, auric clearing, removing karmic imprints, DNA activation, and it's been a really amazing journey. As I've been learning all about that, I'm really just learning about myself and just getting a deeper understanding of my purpose and how I can best be of service to others.
so how long have you been a healer, and how did that start? What led you
Yeah.
to?
So officially I would say it was about like 10 years ago that I feel like I really kind of opened up to this idea of being a healer and doing healing work. But when I really think back to even when I was younger and I was a kid, I feel like, I was always the one where friends or if somebody had a problem, they always come talk to me. Like, I know everybody was coming to me. And I think that was just because of, my ability to just really be empathic and tune in to people and just listen. Like, I feel like that's a skill I've always had, is just really listening, and that's something that, in my opinion, makes a really great healer or somebody who's working in any kind of healing arts or service. It's just really listening to what the other person is communicating. So, but kind of more officially, I started getting into kind of doing some more research around what does it mean to be spiritual, and what is this spiritual kind of living. And my first introduction to it was a yoga class when I was living in Boston. I went to this teacher. Her name was Angelina Craig, and I don't know, decided that just going into that class, was just left so relaxed and feeling so good, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. Like, just to be able to feel this way after just one class. And so it was kind of right after that point that I started looking up and researching about meditation. And at the time too, I was working at an office day job, and I did have a lot of downtime, so I read articles, like learn about different meditation techniques. I even remember finding this one website where it was 101 different meditation techniques, and just going through every single one of them and trying them all out and seeing which ones I really resonated with.
Wow.
Like one that I still think about to this day that really stands out was such a simple one. It was just like, meditation was just go outside and just like stare at the blue sky.
Wow.
And keep staring deeper and deeper into it. And it's like, wait, you can't, there's no like end to that. It just keeps going. And I kind of even have used that in some of my guided meditations where, I'll imagine, or have a client imagine like the clouds in the sky being like thoughts, and you're just kind of watching the thoughts, and you don't, like when you look at a cloud, you don't try to grab the cloud and hold on to it and be like, no, this is so real. And the same thing with thoughts. It's like this thing, it's like you can let it float by. You don't have to put so much meaning onto the thought. It was just a thought. Just watch it and let it let it dissipate like a cloud would. So yeah, I started off with that, and I just started doing more yoga. I started meditating every day and started to see how it was just like changing the way I would view the world, and my mood were better, and I just felt I was starting to develop more inner peace, and I didn't feel as like all over the place like I was before that. And so how I got into maybe a little bit deeper into the healing arts is when I was still in Boston. I was kind of doing some research, and I found this hypnotherapy school. I didn't even know what hypnotherapy was. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it sounds interesting. Definitely interested in altered states of consciousness and exploring more about myself. And I actually did have my undergrad degree was in psychology, so I think on some level I was already kind of trying to learn more about myself and psychology. You know, I learned some things, but it wasn't necessarily the exact path for me, but it did help me to understand some concepts about how the mind works. And so, yeah, I found this school, this hypnotherapy school. It was in California, in the Bay Area, and I knew that I wanted to move to the Bay Area, and I was like, had already had plans in motion. I was kind of had already been like, okay, I'm going to be moving there, and I just made a mental note of them, like, you know, when I move to the West Coast, I'll check out that school and see what it's about, and it kind of started with that. I just started doing some certifications in hypnotherapy, and I really liked it, and I just kept studying, and any book I could read about it, any other schools that I found that I wanted to take a class in, study with different Reiki healers, got Reiki attunements. I just kind of did the whole thing, and it's like, you know, it never ends too. I mean, it's a constant refinement process, any kind of self-development or work you do, but it does pay off. The work you put into it is what you're gonna get back. So I think that's just part of the journey, and yeah, I'm just always excited to learn more. You know, even this past weekend, I was in another like trance and deep work change class for the school I studied NLP at, and just being around like so many powerful healers and people who are really doing their best to create change in the world. It was just awesome to be around like a group like that, and getting instruction from some of like the top teachers in the field too. So yeah, you know, that's kind of general overview of you know, how I got into this.
Yeah, sounds like a very interesting journey, and also it's good that, you know, you're very open to the fact that we are always striving for more and changing and expanding, just like consciousness itself. So it's a wonderful thing to be able to just, you know, keep on exploring your different paths and ways of doing that. But one path that I'm very interested in is the DNA activation, because I know, you know, obviously Jimmy has done some wonderful work with me in the past and really helped me to understand a bit more how our DNA works. But if you could tell us in the audience a bit more about how DNA activation works and why one should be doing that.
Sure. So I guess a good metaphor for, you know, what DNA activation is you could think of it like we're these multidimensional beings. You know, we're not just here in the 3D, but we have these different aspects of ourselves. You know, some people call it like the higher self, or whatever you want to call it, or your soul level. And what the DNA activation is all about is kind of activating those higher parts of yourself and embodying more of that while you are in a body. And so a good metaphor that I like for it is, you could think of it like source is like this electrical power plant for like the city or something, and then like, you know, each person is like they're the house, and electricity has to get to that house. If you are in there, you're in this house, and say there's like 12, 15 rooms in the house, it's like a big house, and only 3 of the rooms the lights are working, you know, you really can't you know, do what you got to do in the house. And you know, it could be all kinds of things. It could be maybe the electrical wiring's messed up, maybe there's a bad connection, or something needs to be kind of reconfigured. The electricity from the power plant can't get to the house, you know, because it has to, you know, it has to step down through different transformers. So, you know, first it goes to like maybe a distribution center, and then it goes through the electrical wires, and then finally the electricity like kind of steps down where, you know, you could plug in a device. Like if you were to just plug in directly into like the power plant, then, like, you know, you get electrocuted. So you don't want to necessarily do that, but you do want to work on the structure and the you know, the wiring in your house. So kind of a DNA activation, I guess, would be like working on the wiring of your energy field, and making sure there's no blockages that are going to cause problems. Because if you do have you know, a blockage somewhere, that energy's not going to be able to move through all the way, and then it can physically manifest as like a some sort of disease or physical problem, or it could be the block could be more emotional or just more of a mental block. But either way, it's like that the blockage is what's like kind of stopping you from just really running that life force energy through your system. And so in the DNA activations, we kind of work on removing those blockages and then activating those higher senses. So, for example, I mean, most people on our planet they're kind of stuck in this cycle of like the 3 dimensions, like, survival and just, trying to get by, and they're kind of working from more the ego and separation and competition. And, if you were, say, just to activate your heart chakra, that would just change everything. If everybody on the planet had their heart chakra activated, then this world will be totally different. And so when we do the activations, it's kind of getting the chakras and the energy centers, spinning in the proper direction, making sure it's like fully, like 100%. You could think of it like even like a laptop battery when it's like down to like 3%. You got to recharge it and you got to like work on it and like put that energy back in there. So that's kind of what I do in the DNA activation sessions. Another thing I think of it too is similar to like Kundalini yoga, where it's sort of about activating that spiritual power that we all have in us and moving that energy up the spine to the brain. So kind of like activating your full brain potential, your full potential just as a being here on the planet. And there's specific techniques and things that we do, and certain breathing exercises and visualizations. And in a way too, it's also kind of an attunement. So if somebody's ever had like a Reiki attunement, what you can think is it's like you're just tuning yourself to this energy that you might have not kind of worked with before. Just like learning any new skill, or if you start a new job, you got to get attuned to the way the company works and to the way that their systems work. And so if you're working with the way like a DNA activation session might work, you attune to those energy frequencies that you'd be using, and once you get used to it, then into your body, then that's something that is like kind of like an automatic thing, and it's just a way of raising your frequency, and the more you raise your frequency, you're going to attract higher frequency people and places and events into your life, and kind of create more of what you want, instead of letting those lower frequencies, or maybe say you have still have some guilt or anger or something stored in your body, you're gonna attract that kind of frequency. You're gonna attract somebody who's really angry into your life, and they're gonna be a mirror for you to show you what you need to change in yourself. And so and that's kind of work I don't only do that in the DNA activation sessions, but in all the healing sessions I do. I really use a combination of all the different modalities I've learned. The hypnotherapy training and the hypnosis training really has helped me with what kind of language patterns to use when I'm working with clients, or just to notice their language patterns, because if they're saying something, sometimes like just what they're saying, the answer is right there, just the way they're saying it, and that kind of can show where the block is. And so just really listening to the client and helping them to get more clear on like where they want to go, and what they do want in their life. And I think it's important to not always just focus on problems we have, but it's you have to say, okay, this is what's going on, but then also you have to have something else to move towards. Otherwise, you're just going to keep focusing on the problem. So if you don't have anything to contrast it with, then it can kind of create some tension of like, I don't know what to do. So yeah, that's why what I help my clients a lot with is just getting clear on what they actually want to manifest in their life, and what they want to do, what kind of relationship they want to have, what kind of health they want to have in their life.
Yeah. No, it's such a great work to be able to just have yourself being able to see this opportunity to change and to function in a better way, in a more healthier way with your own emotional system, and and your life flow and your abundancy, and it's just I've experienced firsthand with his sessions. But I love this kind of work. Also, what I wanted to ask you, and I tend to ask everyone, is it's about Ascension. Do you believe that right now there is some sort of movement happening and people are becoming more open to this kind of technologies and healing and ascending?
I, I don't like to say for sure anything because ultimately, like, I don't really know, I'm not sure. But from what I'm noticing from my personal perspective is there's definitely some sort of shift going on, in the collective consciousness, in the planet. And I'm not sure exactly what that is, but it does seem to be that more people are kind of awakening to these other realities and that there's more than just here in the 3D. And I mean, just thinking about my own personal journey, like some of the things I'm like open to now, like I mean, many years ago I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And now I kind of am starting to be aware of more of those realities, and I mean, even noticing friends or family or people who, like, I never thought I would have been open to this kind of stuff, starting to open up more to it. So it does seem for there to be some sort of change happening, and it makes sense with just even astrologically the way the kind of time period we're in, and there's so much evidence to kind of show that this, there is a change going on. It's not necessarily like a doomsday like 2012 thing like everybody was freaking out about, but it's more just like a shift or a change, and it does seem to feel a lot of times like time is speeding up and that things are just accelerating. And I mean, I know that like technology is like really changing very rapidly, but the technology just seems like it's a manifestation of our own inner consciousness too. So something inside of us is rapidly changing at that same pace as the technology that we're seeing outside of us. And so I think some of these inner technologies are really going to be the future. Is the more we can kind of work with our kind of like own inner universe and inner energy systems, like that seems to me like to be the future. I remember. I don't remember who it was, but it was some interview where a person was talking about how like texting was kind of like the precursor to telepathy. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense, like, because kind of like the phone is just this like middleman at this point for telepathy. You can send a thought, you can send like a message to somebody instantly, and really just a matter of time before our brains just do that themselves.
Wow,
like,
yeah.
I don't know, maybe it'll be a.
Well, that kind of happens sometimes, doesn't it?
It happens anyways,
like,
yeah.
You're thinking about someone and then all of a sudden they call you, or
Yeah, so it's already there. I guess as, just where it's more of like a regular thing and people like are able to do it maybe more consciously.
Sure,
so I feel like now it's kind of happens haphazardly, I mean, unless you're really focusing on doing that. But that's definitely, that's one example of the DNA activation. And as you develop yourself spiritually, that is stuff that kind of happens as a byproduct. You start to notice more psychic kind of abilities. You notice things like telepathy or other, what would be considered like kind of special yogic powers. But that's, I think, the kind of thing that comes naturally from just doing that work. And ultimately, you don't really want to get stuck on that either, because those can be distractions, and you can kind of get lost in that and miss the whole point of what it means to awaken and the whole point of this journey of enlightenment. And so I don't know, it's just cool stuff to think about. Like I think if you're doing this any kind of work and that's your goal, to try to do that. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it's a bad thing, but you might be missing the point of why you're even doing it.
Sure. And talking about your journey again, I just wanted to ask you one last question before we end. And just wanted to ask, throughout your journey, what was the most amazing or the worst experience that you have gone through? And if you like to share with us, just tell how that impacted your own journey.
Okay. I'm not sure about this one yet. The worst and the best.
It's either one,
Yeah.
or just the worst, or just the best, whichever one you would like to share.
Okay. This will be edited.
Sure, yeah.
Okay. I know I have something that would be the worst.
You can just say the best, it's fine.
Yeah.
Most people just say one or the other. It's because some people feel like the worst is where they learn the most.
Yeah, which I'm trying to. I know there's something there. That's why I want to find that, because I feel like that's the thing that's going to connect with somebody. So, what would that be? I guess, okay, so, well, one of the things I can think of is just that, kind of that starting over from scratch and kind of completely stripping away everything. And I feel like I've done that a few times, going through this journey of where I feel like, okay, I got it now, and everything makes sense, and then everything just crumbles and falls apart. Like I just think of how when I was, again, for like first getting into these healing sessions, and like the first like auric clearing session that I did with one of my current teachers, and just how everything changed from that one session. And I'd, like, while it was happening, it seemed like, what is happening? Why is this all falling apart? But I had to change jobs. I had a relationship, and I wound up having to move back in with my family, and it was like all kinds of changes and shifts, and I was like, what, I just didn't understand at the time. And so I guess that would be one thing that I feel like that could be helpful for a lot of people, is when their life starts to fall apart in that way, that it can feel like really scary, and you're in this unknown, and you don't know what direction to even go in. But that time too is this like incubation period, and it's this time for like transformation and healing at the same time. And
wow.
You might not always see that until like some time has passed, and you can look back at it and see like, oh, okay, so that's why that all had to happen. So I feel like that, I've had a few of those where things like that happen. There's even a point where when I was doing the hypnotherapy training, and I'm also a musician. I've been playing music for a long time, but I went through this phase where I'm like, I'm just done with music, and I sold all my equipment, I sold all my gear, and I was like, I'm just done. I'm not gonna play music. I'm just gonna do healing sessions, and that's it. And that was, is the kind of thing where I started to get, eventually, like, something felt off. Like, I felt like I wasn't feeding a part of my soul. I started to kind of get a little bit depressed. I'm like, what's going on? And I just had the realization. It was like kind of like a boomerang kind of effect, where I tried to throw away this thing, and it came back and like hit me in the back of the head. I was like, oh yeah, I know, I gotta still do music. I mean, I don't have to stop doing music just because I'm doing this. And it was kind of like, that was sort of like a rebirth for me as a musician, even here in the Bay Area. That's like, after that point, that's when I started my band, The Love Dimension, and I started writing songs again, and just opening up to that. But I had to kind of like break it down to nothing. Like, it'd be, I had sold everything away, but then I was still kind of doing a little bit of music. I would do some drumming, like hand drumming and kind of trance kind of drumming. I think it was just part of me. I had to go back to the basics. I had to go back to, I'm just going to play some simple drums here with no agenda of trying to like turn this into something. And by allowing that, like, everything to fall away like that, I was able to build it back up in a more powerful way, or in a way that made more sense with who I was at the time. And that just keeps happening too. It's anytime I feel like we get too many structures built up and are really attached to them, I feel like a lot of times there can be tests of like seeing, like, to have those structures break down. And sometimes that's what needs to happen. Sometimes maybe it's just like making a minor adjustment, like, okay, this isn't working, let me add another piece, because you don't want to have to keep rebuilding from scratch every time. But sometimes that's what it takes to really get to back to that heart place. And so I would say that would be an example of kind of a tougher time on the spiritual path, is when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, that's very beautiful, and it's very nice for you to share that with us, especially because we may have sometimes the belief that, oh, I'm gonna take the spiritual path and it's all going to be rainbows and butterflies and it's gonna be so easy.
Yeah.
I'll just sit and meditate and then you're
No,
gonna do the work.
It's I think more often than not, it's actually a lot harder than you think it's gonna be. And I've had moments like that where I'm very blissed out and everything seems perfect, and other times where that's when the real spiritual tests come, is in the tough
Yeah,
times. You know,
it's
can you
true.
still be in that blissful place even when something, you know, that it seems like a terrible bad thing is happening? Can you
That's
still
so
be in that
true.
same place?
That's so true.
And yeah, that's a really good point.
Well, thank you so much, Jimmy, and thank you guys for watching.